Turn to Proverbs chapter 7. If you would, Proverbs chapter 7, keep your finger there. We'll be looking at that in just a moment. Today we're going to talk about accountability, the importance of accountability. It's a subject, it's so important. In fact, if you're going to be successful in whatever endeavor in 2020 and beyond, I'm going to suggest that accountability is one of the most important contributors to your success, to your life, to your health in general. It's so important. Now, we've been talking the last couple weeks. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we talked about, the story that you want to tell. What is the story that you want to tell? You've got a story right now at the beginning of 220. It's going to be something that's going to develop along the way by the end of 220, isn't it? So, what story do you want to end up telling at the end of this year and even beyond that? What's the story you want to tell? Did you know that the decisions that you make today will impact what the story you tell? The story you tell tomorrow begins with the decisions that you make today. And that's why it's so very important to already know, okay, what is the story I want to tell? And your story is either going to inspire your kids or inspire the next generation or inspire the person in the next cubicle, inspire the person that you work with, your teammate, your friends at school, whatever area of influence you have, your story is going to either inspire them or it's going to be something they don't want to replicate or duplicate. So what's the story that you want to tell? I remember when we were on our sabbatical this last summer, we put 10,000 miles on our vehicle. We didn't fly here and there. We drove. I mean, across the country, it was tremendous. We were so grateful for that opportunity. We happened to be in New Mexico, and seeing the beautiful arches, it was so beautiful. We had never been to that part of New Mexico before. And one of the things that we leaned over to each other to say was, oh, I wish the girls were here. Now, it wasn't because we didn't want to be there together, but we wish that somebody else was there to share the experience with us. And that's why accountability, being on a team, working with other people, being in a relationship, serving with other people is so important. And we want to share some of these things with each other. And one of the things that we discover when we're not accountable, it really exposes our weaknesses, exposes the lids on our influence. Because what accountability does for you and I is accountability makes things big and bigger. It makes things great be greater. If we just do it for ourselves, we'll reach a certain limit to what we can accomplish. So when you team up with someone, when you're part of a team, accountability makes big bigger. It makes great greater. If we don't have accountability, the problem is that becomes a lid on our potential. And that lid is our self-sufficiency, our independence, just whatever ego, whatever pride we have, whatever desire we have for recognition, the need for attention and recognition, those will limit our potential because it's all up to us. It's all up to what I do. So it's important to understand how great accountability can be for us, and it helps us to make good decisions when we're surrounded with people who care and people who want to pour into our lives. If you've ever been traveling and you make a wrong turn, you get off on the wrong road, it probably takes about 10, 15 minutes to kind of get back on track. You lose 10 or 15 minutes, right? But if you make a wrong decision in life, you can lose a whole decade dealing with the consequences. So it's so important that you understand the importance of choosing the right road. It's important to understand how accountability plays as a big factor in the outcomes. Now, there's no greater example than what we find in Proverbs chapter 7. I love this passage. I love to revisit it every few years because it's written by the wisest man in the world. Solomon is known as the wisest man in the world, so he has a lot to say. And in this particular proverb, he's telling a story. We don't know if this story is a parable, if it's a true story. Maybe it represents something in his past. But anyways, he narrates this story. And the gist of the story is he's perched up somewhere and he's looking out his window and he sees this guy going down this road, and Solomon sees where that road leads to. He sees where this guy is headed, kind of like we do from time to time. We've all had this experience before. You see something happening, you're at an intersection, you see two cars, and you see them coming at each other, but maybe they don't see each other, and you know what's going to happen. For a moment, you see the future. You're like God. You see the future. Only for a moment, though, okay? And all of a sudden, you see, there they go, and then they crash, right? They didn't see it coming, but you saw it coming. There's people in your life that are that way. You see, boy, they've been isolating themselves. Wonder what's going on. Or, man, they're so protective of their cell phone. That could be a problem. What's going on there? There's people who are going down a certain road. We see it. They don't see it. I remember when we were teaching our girls to ride a bike, that big day when you take the training wheels off. Oh, that's a great day. And we remember one of our daughters was beginning to ride, and, they're doing so well. She's doing so well, but we see the future. We see there's this turn up ahead, and we're wondering, how is she going to navigate this turn? She was doing fine just going straight, but now there's a turn, and we're standing back watching, and all of a sudden it's like, there comes a point where forward thrust gives way to gravity, right? And we're like, there she goes, crash, right? She falls over. Oh, so we go over and we pick her up and we kiss her boo-boos and get her back on the bike to, keep riding. But there are those situations where we see it happening in people's lives. We can see the future. They're going down a certain road. They've gotten certain habits, patterns, behaviors that are somewhat troubling. And maybe we don't have the courage or the guts to confront them, or maybe we don't have the relationship. Maybe we don't have their trust to be able to speak into their lives. And so sometimes we avoid those terrible issues. Well, Solomon shows us a story of a guy, again, who just didn't see it coming. Let's pick it up in verse 6 here this morning. So here we go. While I was at the window, there he is, at the window, right, of his house, he's looking through the curtain. I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense. Now, it's one thing to be a part of a group, but how about to be the one that's in particular, as there's just something, he's wandered off and he lacks common sense. Now, to be truthful and to be honest, if we would all be honest here, we've all been there, we've all lacked common sense, especially when we're younger. All youths lack common sense. Now, before you throw your darts, a lot of you students are sitting over here this morning, we were all there, okay? And the reason why sometimes younger people or young adults lack judgment or common sense is because of a lack of time and experience. Time and experience is what brings you good judgment and, well, hopefully good judgment, common sense, right? And it's not that you're not capable of making, having good common sense or making good judgments. It's just time and experience is the key factor, and you haven't had a lot of that. Now, you may say to your parents, well, you think I lack judgments, but do you see what you're wearing? Do you see what your hair's like, right? Well, that may be true, but, regardless of what they're wearing, kids, and what your parents, their hair looks like, and how they're trying to dress younger, how they're trying to talk cool, talk the language, they have an advantage because they've got time and experience over you. And here's the situation. Solomon sees this guy. He's probably a nice guy. He's probably cool. But he does not see the danger in this road that he's traveling down, simply because he doesn't have much time and experience. And this is where the accountability question comes up for me. I look at this text and I'm like, okay, so where was the accountability? Where's the accountability in this story? He was with some other guys. They were a bunch of naive young people, but then all of a sudden he got off on himself because sometimes we believe two lies. I think men sometimes we're worse off than women with this when it comes to accountability because we think we can do it by myself. That's why we work on projects alone sometimes, because if I make a mistake or I fail, I can fix it. I don't have to kind of put myself out there and be exposed to criticism. So we tell ourselves, I can do it myself. Men, come on, let's be honest. That's kind of one of those voices that goes around in our head sometimes. I can do it myself. I can do it myself. I don't need to look at a map. Don't tell me where to go. I can figure this out. Another lie we tell ourselves is, this is just the way I am. This is the way I've always handled stress. This is the way, I've always handled conflict. You married me for better and worse. This is worse, so get used to it, all right? This is just the way I am. And so we tell ourselves that lie, and it keeps us from being accountable. I love what, again, Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Look what he writes. He says this: 2 people are better off than 1. For they can help each other succeed. So there's there's achievement and success, but it's related to accountability, being in a community where you help each other. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone, oh, look at that. They are in real trouble. Wow. You know people like that. They've kind of gone off on their own, and you may not know all the details, but you get a sense that they are in real trouble. You know that because you've been there before. I've been there before. We haven't had the accountability, and we've just ventured off into some mindset, into some behavior, some decision that we've made. And the thing about it is oftentimes we don't realize we need accountability till it's too late, till it's after the fact. We've already made the decision, and now we're paying, we're paying some unpleasant circumstance or having some consequences. And so we don't really know that we need it until it's too late. And so, we have to, that's why we have to know that it's so important to have accountability in our life, to have another set of eyes on the project. Man, I wish I could have another set of eyes on those proofs that we need to make a decision here. I wish I could have your feedback. I wish you'd have been there before. How many times have we said, man, I wish I would have known this when I was younger? Okay, sometimes we don't realize the need for accountability until it's too late. And here in this story, and even in this verse, it talks about the importance of being in community, having relationships where you can help each other. And that verse, the next verse goes on like this. It says, a person standing alone can be attacked and defeated. Okay, if you're alone, you can't look 360. But when you're standing back to back with somebody, you're going to see it from this direction. They're going to see it from this direction. You're in pretty good shape, aren't you? That's I want you to get that mental picture. When you're going along with somebody, when you got a team, you're part of it. There's that ability to help each other. And if you had to add a third person there, then you're going to be able to see where maybe you could not have your peripheral vision. Okay. So it's important. The 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So there need to be people in your life and my life who will say these 2 things, and when it comes to accountability. They'll say, I'll cover your back, you'll cover mine. I'll cover your back, and you'll cover mine. That's what Galatians 6:2 talks about, bearing each other's burdens. But you also need people who will say this as well. I'll get in your face, you get in mine. Do you have the kind of relationships that can go there? That they can get in your face and you can get in their face? That's important. And it's a Christian thing to do. Paul was talking to Peter, and this is in Galatians as well. Look at this verse. Paul said that when Peter came to Antioch, I had to oppose him to his face, for what he did was very wrong. He's saying that Peter did something wrong. See, these guys weren't perfect either, right? They had their issues. Peter and Paul, right? 2 of the giants in the New Testament in the early church. They were opposing each other. They were not in agreement. And so Paul had to have the courage to oppose Peter to his face. And it's a good thing in the grand scheme of things, because they didn't duplicate their efforts in the same area. Paul said, okay, God, you got a plan. I don't understand it. We still disagree. But you know what? I'm going around the Mediterranean rim, and we're just going to spread the gospel. Peter stayed more locally there for a while. So, in God's plan, it worked out. It was okay. But there are times, and there's people in our lives that we need to have that kind of accountability where, I got your back, you got mine. I'll get in your face, you get in my face. Well, here in this story, this guy didn't have it. He didn't have it, so he starts to wander down this road. Let's pick it up at verse 8. So he was crossing the street. Remember, Solomon's looking down. He sees him crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path by her house. Now look at this setup. This is an incredible setup. It was twilight. It was in the evening, as deep darkness fell. I mean, look at the description here. The author is saying, you know what, I want it to be crystal clear what time of day this was. And you remember what your mama said. She said, nothing good happens after midnight, right? And if your kids are younger, it's nothing happens good after 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. You just got to keep moving that thing down, don't you? But anyway, so you can see something has happened here. You don't have to be a Bible scholar to get an inkling that this kid is going down the wrong road. And again, Solomon sees it, and he's a little concerned. Now, when this kid is walking, you wonder what is going through his head. I mean, you know, maybe there's this soundtrack playing in his mind, like Born to be Wild, right? Or Dance Monkey, depending on the generation that you're from. But whatever, this is like, he is like going full throttle. He's enjoying the moment. But Solomon, he sees this whole thing, and maybe there's a soundtrack going on his mind, and it's from Jaws. Dun, 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 right? Because this kid is heading down the wrong direction. And it's interesting because there's this contrast between where this young man thinks he's going and where he thinks this road leads to, and where Solomon, who has time and experience, he's the wisest man in the world, where he sees this as going. And he sees this as not just an event, not just a one-time thing. This is a road that you travel on. This leads to a certain destination. To this young man, it was just an exciting event. He's there for the moment, right? But this wise older man, no, this has a very predictable destination. I see it, you don't see it. He goes on, and look what it says, verse 10. So the woman approached him, seductively dressed and sly of heart. Okay, so you can kind of get a feel of the setup here. She was brash, rebellious type, never content to stay at home. Okay, so you get an idea of who this woman is. She's often in the streets and markets, soliciting at every corner. Interesting, isn't it? So she threw her arms around him and kissed him, and with a brazen look, don't go to the next slide yet. I mean, think about this. This is getting pretty saucy, isn't it? I mean, I think he might need to take a shower or something like that. I mean, look at that. You're thinking, I thought this was kind of old and outdated, but this is just like, wow, this is like today, isn't it? So what a story he's beginning to describe here of this young man. And so she says this, and this won't mean anything to us today. I've just made my peace offerings and fulfilled my vows. What is she saying by that? Well, she's really saying that she's not a prostitute. She's got plenty of money. But what she's saying is, I've already been to the temple. I got my act together with God. I presented my peace offering. I sacrificed an animal. I carried my big bucket of sin. I laid it at the altar. God's forgiven me. And now my bucket is empty, and I'm ready to fill it up with you. Because she had this little system, you see. And let's be honest, some of us have played that game before. Doesn't matter if you're Methodist, you're Presbyterian, you're Assembly of God, you're Baptist, you're Brethren. We all have this little systems. Catholics is a little more complex because, you bring your bucket in and you confess it before the priest. I was there. I was Catholic. I grew up that way. But Protestants is not quite as sophisticated. It's, we don't have to go to the priest because we've been taught that we can go right straight to God, bring our bucket of sin and say the magic verse, if you confess your sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us, and we can receive. And I don't mean to diminish the part of forgiveness, but because it's true and sincere, and it's the truth. But oftentimes, we treat it like it's not. And it's so insulting to God when we're not sincere and genuine. And I know there's ongoing struggle and battle, and we that's why we need accountability so that we can, iron sharpens iron, and we can encourage each other. But sometimes when we have this loose idea of being a Christian, we can believe anything, we can do anything. We'll just get we'll be convicted once in a while, maybe repent for a season, but we're right back into that sin, that behavior, or on the wrong road. And that's so insulting to God. And here, this woman, that's what's happening here. She's got this little system, and so she's got her things squared away with God, and now she's ready, to get it on with this guy. So look what happens in verse 15. Look at how she personalizes this whole thing now. She's appealing to the male ego, okay? She uses the word you 3 times in this one verse. She says, you're the one I was looking for. I came out to find you. And here you are. I mean, this kid, he's like, wow, this is like a dream come true. She came looking for me. I mean, I went on, I go down this road. I was kind of looking for her or somebody like her. But you were looking for me. I'm special. I'm the man. Okay? In his mind, this is like a dream come true. You know, some of us guys are like, yeah, wow. And some of you girls are like, oh, she's nasty. So there's 2 different things going on here. It's like, you know, she thinks that this is like, he thinks this is an event. You know, that this is real love. And he doesn't know that she's just trying to use him. Okay, so, you know, she appeals to his male ego there for sure. And not only that, but then next verse, it says this, my bed is spread with beautiful blankets, with colored sheets of Egyptian linen. So she had money, okay? I perfume my bed in myrrh and aloe and cinnamon. We better keep moving on, right? Wow, it's getting hot, isn't it? Come, let's drink our fill of love until morning. Let's enjoy each other's caresses. He's thinking, wow, this is, I feel like I'm in a music video or something. Wow, this is amazing. And it's, to her, it's just a transaction. And then she says, my husband is not home. He's away on a long trip. In other words, don't rush off. You know, stick around the next morning. We'll smoke a few cigarettes. We'll eat some breakfast. I imagine you're hungry after last night. You know, just stick around. You don't have to rush off. But not only that, then she says this. He has taken a wallet full of money with him, and he won't return until later this month. That's her way of saying, you know, and you don't have to rush off. You know, he's gone. We can shack up for a little while. We can test drive the car, see if we want to make that commitment. Your dirty little secret is okay with me. You won't be discovered. Let's just enjoy this moment. He had his mind, his eyes, his heart on the moment. Solomon, as he's telling this, is like, danger, danger, you don't see it, but I see the end result. Don't think that you're the exception to the rule when it comes to following God's ways in His Word. And sometimes we can talk ourselves out of righteous, holy living because our flesh just dominates. Or we're in a culture that is so, it's so sensitized to this whole topic and others like it. So Solomon is saying, come on, you got to wake up, guy. Yeah, I know you don't see it. And then verse 22 gives 3 examples of animals that didn't see it coming. Said he followed her, so he's not leading his own life. He's just following whatever. You're like an ox going to the slaughter. He was like a stag caught in a trap, awaiting the arrow that would pierce his heart. He was like a bird flying into a snare, little knowing it would cost him his life. It's pleasurable for a moment, but it always results in incredible pain. It will cost you your life. Sin kills everything that it touches. And so this guy doesn't get it. So what happens is Solomon pulls out of the narrative, he pulls out of the story, and he begins to talk to you and me, a broader audience. He's talking to people who will read this after he has written it. And look what he says. He says this, listen to me, my sons and daughters. And he repeats it for emphasis. Pay attention to my words. Don't just hear the words that I'm saying today. Don't just let it go, yeah, I heard what Pastor Mike said. No, pay attention. Put your focus on the words. Put your focus on the outcome. Understand here for a moment. You need to pay attention. Put your attention to what these words are saying. So, it goes on to say this. Don't let your heart stray away toward her. Don't wander down her wayward path. And you're saying, it's not a path. It's just a one-time thing. No, it's a path. It's a road. It's like a trap. It's like a snare. Don't think that you can be the exception to God's rule. God knows so well. And so then it goes on to say this, for she has been the ruin of many. So in other words, buddy, you're not so special. I know you think she loves you. You found, I've never felt love like this before. I know you think that, but you're one of many. Many, many, many have gone down that road before. History is full of examples of how giant-sized people were taken down by a mistress. Whether it's kings, it's presidents, it's CEOs, it's your best friend, it's somebody next door, it's somebody that they just need a listening ear. I'm just trying to help them. Wow, many. You're not so special. I know you think you are, but this happens all the time. It's like I-95, 10 lanes highway, and they even put in express lanes. There's so many people trying to go down this road. You're not the exception. In fact, it'll be so common that they'll put a show on primetime television, call it Desperate Housewives. This was written 3,000 years ago, and not much has changed, has it? Many have lost their good reputation. They've lost their career. They've lost their money. They've lost themselves. They've lost their health. Many have traveled down this road. So, go to the next verse. We'll wrap this up. Her house is the road to the grave. It's the road to the grave. Not only that, but the bed is a den of death. The bed becomes the battlefield that leads to death. Now, what do you do with all this? As you were reading this story, as I was taking you through this, you kind of got a sense, right? I know you were with me on where this story was headed. Why is it so easy to see it in somebody else, but not see it in ourselves? Isn't that strange? It's easy to maybe see somebody else, decisions, behaviors, patterns, but then we don't see it in ourselves. It's like when you go to a good counselor and you're telling your story. It's not long before they'll maybe interject, and when you did this, I bet you felt this. And you're like, whoa, yeah, how'd you know? You're good. They're like, I'm not that good. I'm not that smart. It's just happened 1,000 times before. You're like the last person that walked out of here, paid me $150 an hour. It's nothing new. This is a wide open highway. And that's where accountability becomes so important, especially for the church, the people of God who are in community. We have relationship enough with each other where we can address some of these and stop avoiding. And so accountability is so important. See, you can have a lot of good intentions. And intentions, it's great to start off the year with a plan, with a goal, with some dreams. You can have some great intentions, but without accountability, you can get going on the wrong road and deal with all kinds of consequences. You may be here today and you're a single woman. And you're like, my intention is I want to end up with a good Christian guy, somebody who's got his act together. So I'm going to go out with any guy who comes along. It doesn't matter. I met him in a bar or in a chat room. His Instagram doesn't look too bad. It's a good intention to want a Christian guy like that, but you're going down the wrong road. And sometimes you need a Christian brother or sister to maybe help you to see what maybe you're not seeing. Or maybe you're here today and you're like, I want my family to get along. I want us to vacation together, grandkids and all. So I'm going to work really hard right now, get extra jobs as much as I can so that we can take those big vacations. I can pay for the lake home. I can pay for the timeshare. Everybody will understand how hard Dad has to work to keep it all together and to hopefully get to all these places. It's a good intention, but it's the wrong road. Or maybe you're like, I really want a good relationship with my adult children. I want them to respect me, to be able to come for advice. So I'm going to be demanding. I'm going to be a critical perfectionist so that people around me feel like it's never enough. I can't be good enough for you. I'm going to yell and scream in our home. I'm going to treat with disrespect. I just don't understand when my kids don't call. I just don't understand why we don't have anything. It's because you chose the road that leads to getting disrespect. Or you might be, I want to grow old. I want to have a long life and invest in my family, so I'm going to neglect my health. Those are decisions that we make. I want to lose this bulge. Can I have your order? Yeah. A Big Mac Supreme. You want to supersize it? Oh, yeah. Supersize? Yeah, supersize it. Those are decisions that we make. I want to know the Bible. I want to, be somebody who, when people have questions, they can come and I can give an answer. So I'm going to troll and scroll social media. I'm going to spend all my time on Facebook and not in his book. I mean, that's a road. I want to make God a priority. I want to raise a godly family, so I'm going to be inconsistent with my church attendance. I might just attend. I'm not even going to get involved because then I got to be there more often. That's a road we choose. When I get married, I want to have an incredible sex life. So I'm going to practice with everybody who comes along beforehand so we can see if, we should make that commitment. We laugh, and but it's so true. And even Christians who choose to kind of give the car a test drive before they're willing to make a commitment. Or, I want to have a great relationship with my husband through the years. Once the kids are gone, I want to have a great relationship. So while we have kids, I'm going to prioritize the kids over my husband. We haven't had a date night even yet this year. We haven't had a getaway since we've had kids. We just can't find, whatever the excuses are. That's a road. Those are decisions we make. I want to be financially secure, so I'm going to get a bunch of consumer debt. There's going to be a lot of mystery around our money. I want to look the part first, so I'm going to drive right. I'm going to dress right. I'm going to have all the shiny gadgets because it'll open up doors for me. Those are all good intentions, but you know what the saying is? The road to hell is paved with good intention. And I'm not saying these things will lead you to hell, but it could bring about a hellish life on earth for sure. So it's important, the decisions we make and the accountability that we have in our lives. So 3 big questions to wrap up this message here this morning. 3 big questions, and the first one is this. As you think about your finances, your relationships, your marriage, your entertainment, career, dating, morality, you can add to the list. Is the road you're on going to get you where you want to be? Is the road you're taking, are you going to end up in a place that you want to be? That's really up to you. That's why you should always listen to God and your mama. Because your mama knows. She's like the Solomon. Don't go there. You're like, oh, Mom. She's like, no, I've been there. I've done that. Listen to your mama. She knows, all right? And see, many of us, we can't figure this out on our own. We don't always see it clearly. That's why we need accountability around us. We need to be in a C group, a small group, and on a team somewhere. I have somebody in your life. You don't need a bunch of friends. You need 1 or 2. Somebody told me if you have 1 or 2 good friends in your life, count yourself blessed. And I mean somebody who can go there with you. Somebody who's you got their back, they've got yours, that you can be in their face and they can be in your face. Accountability is so important. Imagine how different life would be, how things would change if you had accountability. If you put this stuff into practice, not just here today, like this, listen to these words, but pay attention, like put your attention on it. If you put this into practice, and some of you're already experiencing the benefits and the blessing of faithfulness, of living faithfully. You've done some small things and you're beginning to see the progress in that. Some of you have taken the road of forgiveness, like Carmela shared here this morning. Instead of taking that road of bitterness, You've chosen the road of forgiveness, and now you're beginning to heal. You're beginning to feel better about the relationship because you chose that road. Some of you have chosen the road of financial health. You've become a tither. You're driving smaller. You're living smaller. You're eating out less. You're staying out of debt. You're becoming a steady plotter. You're staying on the path, and you're beginning to experience the reward, and maybe not financial reward, but lower stress. You're not so overextended. That's a blessing in and of itself. Wow. And it's not because it happened overnight or that you got a big check in the mail or you won the lottery or you whatever you're doing. No, that's a road that God has already predetermined will be blessed. Some of you are on the road to physical health. You're in a program, you're working out, you're just watching things a little bit better because you want to be there for the long run. So your health you're making some steady progress. Some of you are on the road to building a godly legacy. So you're getting more involved in your church community. Not that going to a building is anything, but it's the times when you're away from this building, when you hit a wall, when you need to call somebody, when you don't walk in and you just feel like you're a number, where nobody really knows you. You're just in and out. But you're part of a family. And when we fall, if I got your hand and I start going down, I'm going to actually start pulling you down until you can pick me up and help me up. That's the kind of community. You're allowing people into your life, and they've allowed you into their life with some accountability. Second question is this: has someone recently tried to warn you, but you blew them off, or you're maybe living in denial? They've been around you. They've been trying to get through to you, and maybe they didn't do it right. Maybe they approached it with judgment or some kind of criticism, and you're like, don't judge me, don't judge me. Well, guess what? As the church community, that's not biblical. We are supposed to judge each other. We don't judge the world because they don't know. But when we're exposed to the truth and we're just walking in rebellion or just stubborn or just selfish or unaware, that's when we need to correct and teach and rebuke each other. And some people throw that, don't judge me, and, well, if you're part of, not even a church, you're part of the family of God, you better be ready. Because you're not all that. You haven't arrived yet. And even as your pastor, I make many mistakes. I deal with people wrong often. I'm oftentimes going to people saying, listen, I'm sorry. I was intense in that moment. I'm sorry. I mean, we deal with that stuff in our marriage and even with our adult children who seem to be so perfect almost. They're not, believe me, but what you see is what we post, right? We've worked through a lot of stuff. You need those kind of people in your life. So who's been trying to get through? They haven't done it perfectly, but you just blew them off, or maybe you just weren't ready to deal with it. You think, let me just get this over with, and then but you've just been avoiding. You've been in denial. And then the last question is this: is it possible that you need to make a course correction? Is it possible that you need to make a course correction? Why lose another 12 months? Why lose another decade? Why don't you make that course correction now? And if you're not sure what that is, get yourself around with some people. See, you want people in your circle who aren't afraid to talk to you and tell you what you need to know. You want people who aren't impressed with you, okay? And they're going to not give you the truth. People who really know you. That's what you want. Some of you've reached some unpleasant destinations and you're dealing with certain things. You're mad at God, you're mad at yourself, you're mad at other people. There's plenty of people to blame. And oftentimes we don't look in the mirror. But this is a mirror moment. What do you need to correct? I want you to picture with me that you're 85 years old. Imagine yourself as 85 years old. Some of you are closer to that than others. You're sitting in your favorite chair. You got that blanket over your lap. You're sipping on some decaf coffee because you want to sleep that night. And in your mind, you're not dreaming about the next 5 years. most of your thoughts are reminiscing about the 80 plus that you've already lived. And it's then that you begin to realize on the balance sheet of life where you put most of your weight. And if you put all of your weight on your achievements, on the things that are around you, the stuff, the possessions, you realize that those aren't as weighty as the people that you're doing life with, the people that are in your life that you've made the investment in. And then you realize that there's a certain return on that investment that you've made. And if you've lived for yourself, you've been kind of selfish, and it's been about, well, what makes me happy? I'm going to make this decision because this will make me happy. And you forsake that road that takes you on. You'll end up being pretty lonely. There'll be some lonely days sitting in that chair. But if you've made the investment in people, you've made the investment in your family, you've worked through the difficult times, and we all have them, and you choose not to quit. You choose that, you know what, there's enough of me to work on. I've been blaming others. There's enough of me to work on. And God's not finished with me yet. As you make that investment, there'll be people there. There'll be people there to help you. There'll be people there to do life with. I heard it said that some people, they've called friendship like a watermelon. It's tough and hard on the outside. It's good for protecting, but it's terrible for digesting. But it's the soft stuff, the vulnerable stuff on the inside, where the sweet is. It's where the fruit is. I'm not sure how this message has touched you today, but I think it's a great need in our church. It's church universal, but it's celebration. That need for unity, that need for community. And I hope 2020, I hope that it's such a healthy year for our church, and it's only going to be that way if we see the value in accountability. And please don't leave. Us as pastors, we're trying our best to keep track of people. There's some empty seats around you of people that used to be seated there. If you notice it, call them. Look them up on Facebook. You don't have their number, maybe we have it. Hopefully we do. We should. And let's be so connected as a church family. Amen. Why don't you stand with me, and I want to pray over us in just a moment. But could we do this? Could we take a hand, put a hand on a shoulder near you? Nobody alone. Come on over here, honey, if you would. Come up here with Rachel. And maybe this isn't your home church, but just play along, would you? We'd love it to be your home church. No pressure. You're part of the family of God. That's the most important thing. We're just one of many great churches in the area, but we long, and we started this church really desiring to build an authentic community, and we got a long way to go, but we want to lead the way. And just want to say we love you as a church, and we're proud of you, but we can have a greater 2020, but let's be accountable to each other. Amen. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you for your word. Oh, your word steps on our toes. Sometimes it's unclear. And thank you, God, for your help today in explaining just this portion of Scripture. I'm humbled by the opportunity to speak to your people today. And may this not be just words that we've heard, but things that we allow to sink in, settle in, and then we do something with it. So I pray, God, even today, you'll put somebody on our heart that we need to reach out to. Maybe somebody that we've been wanting to maybe see if they could be some accountability for us, but we've been afraid because we've done that before, and it's, God, give us the forget the word, but just to not just try more than just once, to be able to connect with people. I pray for homes and marriages that are just tattered and torn and wanting to give up and quit. Lord, may there be some kind of Holy Spirit glue that just keeps our hands connected even through the tough times. But Lord, help us not to live in denial of certain issues that have caused separation, have caused big issues, God. May we not be so isolated and in denial that we don't deal with stuff. God, give us the courage. Give us the help by your Holy Spirit, I pray. And may we be more connected than ever before.